Fox 45's years-long investigation into the Safe Streets program comes to a head today.
Was the FBI here this morning?
Have a good day.
The FBI raids a Safe Streets location and the homes of 2 employees.
All I know is about the raid, and so I need questions answered.
The mayor claiming transparency.
We are transparent about the program. We will not risk the integrity of the program for anything.
But that hasn't been the case.
Look at how he responds to Miss Mackenzie Frost. It's like a vampire seeing a cross. He runs from her.
At Fox 45, you've been all over this for years, and you've been fenced out of basic information.
Tonight, we're shining a light on a program shrouded in secrecy from its criminal history, its questionable spending, and the gang it now could be affiliated with.
BGF has had a stronghold over so many neighborhoods. They took over the prisons, they took over the streets.
Fox 45 News holding elected leaders' feet to the fire to get answers about what Safe Streets employees are doing and how they're spending your money.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Kai Jackson. Fox 45 News is following breaking news. The FBI raids the Safe Streets Bel Air Edison location and the homes of 2 employees. Sources tell us federal agents are looking into possible gang affiliation.
And it comes almost exactly 2 years after our investigation into the Safe Streets program began. Tonight, we're reviewing everything we know about Safe Streets and all the questions that remain about the program.
That's right. Our team of reporters is going over every detail and angle. Alexa Ashwell is examining the gang that could be at the center of the probe.
Jeff Abel looking into the history of criminal activity within Safe Streets. And Keith Daniels is pressing city council members for their reaction to the raid.
Our team coverage begins tonight with Mackenzie Frost and the federal investigation.
FBI agents raiding the Safe Streets location in Bel Air Edison, as well as 2 employees' homes. Sources close to that investigation tell us that this probe is possibly connected to gang affiliation, and this wouldn't be the first time that has been an issue for Safe Streets. Thursday morning in Bel Air Edison, the Safe Streets location getting locked up as a woman captured by Fox 45 News cameras leaving the Safe Streets site.
Was the FBI here this morning?
Have a good day.
Locking the door just hours after the FBI on site searching the locations. Sources close to the investigation telling Fox 45 News the probe related to possible Black Guerrilla family gang affiliation. The Bel Air Edison Safe Street site managed by LifeBridge Health. According to LifeBridge, 2 other employees had federal agents show up at their homes. In this statement, LifeBridge telling Fox 45 News, "We are treating this incident seriously and complying with requests from authorities." It's unclear what requests have been made. Mayor Brandon Scott and the Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement issuing a brief statement pledging accountability for anyone found guilty. But this is not the first time BGF specifically has been linked to Safe Streets. In 2018, Ricky Evans, a former Safe Streets worker, admitting to storing guns and drugs here at the Safe Streets location that used to be located off Monument Street in East Baltimore. The feds also say Evans admitted to using the location as a BGF gang meeting site. Well, Monzi says the FBI raid does not and should not diminish the work that Safe Streets Baltimore staff do on a daily basis. It raises questions about the operations. We send questions to Mayor Scott and Monzi asking how many current Safe Streets employees are breaking the law. Are any other Safe Streets sites under federal investigation? Is this latest black eye for the program enough for you to call for a pause in funding for and operations of Safe Streets? Will you now release the names of the Safe Streets employees to the public? Monzi referring us back to their first statement, and Mayor Scott not answering the questions directly, saying everyone should be held accountable and he will work with the federal partners through this investigation. Despite Fox 45 News' relentless investigation uncovering previous criminal activity from employees and pushing for transparency, let's get a video of this. Mayor Brandon Scott defending the program time and time again.
I know what they do. I in full support of what they do. The public should trust and know, just like they trust our police officers, that these lifesavers are out there doing their work. We are transparent about the program. We will not risk the integrity of the program for anything. They're out in the community, and as we go to and grow, as you heard about us announcing Safe Streets 2.0, it's about how we further that work and take it to many different places.
But that has not been reality. Fox 45 News has been asking the city for names of the Safe Streets workers, how those employees are hired, the definition of a mediation, what type of training is provided and by who, along with how the work by Safe Streets employees is tracked. Those questions routinely ignored. Also never answered exactly how the nonprofits running each location spend the millions of dollars in tax money given to them by the city. Now the FBI setting its sight on Safe Streets in City Hall, seemingly standing by its flagship gun violence prevention program. We're still working to find out more information about this latest federal investigation, but the FBI tells me no other Safe Streets locations were raided. In the newsroom, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, the Safe Streets program hires former convicts, but it's not clear how the program makes sure its employees don't continue to commit crime while they're working for Safe Streets. Fox 45 News found one example of a Safe Streets worker charged with selling drugs at his location. Charging documents include this picture. Police say he is holding a bag of drugs. Fox 45's Jeff Abel joins us live now with a closer look at Safe Streets workers charged with crimes. Jeff?
Well, the city has now accumulated a roster full of former Safe Street workers who had vowed to fight crime, but it didn't take long before they'd committed crime. It's the arm of the city's crime fight that has long operated under a cloud of suspicion. Its books aren't audited, its members aren't identified, and its progress still in dispute.
The reality is that we don't know how many people they're talking to. We don't know that they're actually stopping any crime or stopping any beefs at all.
But what we do know is that many of the ex-cons who are hired to mediate conflicts in communities have actually made city streets less safe and at taxpayers' expense. Take Ronald Alexander, for instance, seen here wearing a Safe Street shirt and holding a bag of suspected drugs. This former staffer hit the radar when he was pulled over for a traffic stop, and officers found 100 grams of fentanyl in the console of his car. According to a federal indictment, he told officers he'd seized the drugs as part of his work with Safe Streets in order to prevent crime. Alexander is now back in prison, serving an 11-year sentence for drug distribution.
I'm not knocking all of them, but I'm saying some of the Safe Streets workers are what they call 50%ers, which means 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
And sometimes both feet have been consumed with crime. 10 years ago, the city shut down this Safe Streets office on Monument Street when guns and drugs were found stashed in the office. And in the Brooklyn office last year, a federal indictment accused Vernon Harper of possessing fentanyl with the intention of distributing it. The former Safe Streets worker was sentenced to 18 months in prison. But despite all the problems, the mayor has long defended Safe Streets.
And just like any other employee in any other industry, if we find out that folks are in that, whether they're a Safe Streets worker, whether they're a police officer, whether they're a Rec and Parks worker, we'll address that through law enforcement.
But former City Council President Lawrence Bell believes the problems are too great, the progress too little.
I believe that the time has come to kind of like phase out Safe Streets. Let's take the money we're putting in Safe Streets, that is, let's put that money into recruitment of police officers.
Well, Safe Streets has long vowed to hire trusted members of the community to work in its staff, but it has not described exactly what trusted members, the qualifications for that may be. We're live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. Then there's the case of Damon Scroggins' murder. Safe Streets worker Ronald Brady Jr. was accused of killing Scroggins in September of 2019. That case went to trial in 2022, but ended in a hung jury. Brady was ultimately acquitted in March. Scroggins' family is highly critical of the Safe Streets program. They call it a, quote, criminal enterprise.
My belief is that our city government is financing a criminal enterprise. I believe that within my heart. Our city government is so invested in it that it's turning a blind eye to what it really is.
Fox 45 News has been asking about the Safe Streets workers for years. We want to know how the workers are trained, how they clock their hours, and how the city makes sure workers aren't involved in illegal activity while employed by Monzi or Safe Streets. We've never received a straight answer to any of those questions. The mayor's office and Monzi are ignoring them outright.
And Fox 45 News has also been pressing for answers about how Safe Streets workers handled the Brooklyn Homes mass shooting. 2 people were killed that night, 28 others hurt in the incident. Monzi says Safe Streets workers were there, conducted 5 mediations before the shooting. However, those Safe Streets workers did not tell police nor Monzi about the massive party or any potential threats. The city won't say what a mediation is, how they're recorded, or the criteria for a successful mediation. Monzi says there is a form to record mediations. We pressed the mayor on that, asking to see a blank form.
Have you seen the form that the Safe Streets workers used when they go out in the communities and talk to people, that they keep track of their mediations?
I have probably not seen them in a long time.
Can the public see a blank form?
I think the public should trust and know, just like they trust our police officers, that these lifesavers are out there doing their work.
And Fox 45 News followed up with more questions, asking what information is privileged when talking about the document used to record and track mediations done by Safe Streets workers. And we've also asked what the public is supposed to base their trust on. The mayor's office ignored those questions. And we're not the only ones asking questions. Some city council members are as well. Councilman Antonio Glover went so far as to say the city should withhold funding for Safe Streets until they're more transparent. Councilman Yitzi Schleifer and Eric Costello have also been outspoken in their demands for transparency, prompting former Monzi director Shantae Jackson to criticize them in an op-ed in the Baltimore Sun back in July.
She spent her entire tenure in this agency running away from the media, and I'm going to continue to ask it, and if we don't receive the follow-up prior to that hearing, I'm going to repeat the very same questions that I asked last time.
Should Monzi be getting the level of funding that it is?
Right now, I think that until we start to see transparency in data, I think that money should be held to a halt.
Councilman Schleifer and Costello talked about the raid. Eric Costello posted to X, "Remember when the former director of Monzi, speaking of Ms. Jackson, chided us for having the audacity to ask hard questions about Safe Streets? Yeah, I do," end quote. Fox 45's Keith Daniels spoke with council members today. He joins us live now with more on what they're saying. Keith?
Well, Kai, we reached out to all of the council members on this matter today and tonight. Comments about Safe Streets and those serious allegations. The latest development involving Safe Streets coming into focus Thursday night at City Hall, where council members are asked to respond.
As you all know, I'm a huge fan of Safe Streets.
These are city employees that their salaries are paid for with taxpayer dollars.
City lawmakers speaking out after learning about the morning FBI raid at the Safe Streets Bel Air Edison location, along with 2 employee homes. The FBI not releasing details, but sources telling Fox 45 News federal agents are looking into possible gang affiliation. At an unrelated hearing at City Hall Thursday night, we caught up with 2 council members, one who supports Safe Streets, the other with critical questions about the program, both with concerns about the FBI raid and those serious allegations.
It's not surprising at all. I mean, myself and a couple of my colleagues have been very vocal on just standard accountability and transparency, and we've gotten none of that.
Obviously, serious allegations. It would be serious allegations if anybody, had that happen to them. So, I look forward to finding out more about what happened and what the investigation holds, and see what comes out of it.
Fox 45 News sent questions to the entire city council, asking their reaction to the FBI raid on the Safe Streets location, and if they support calls for an audit on the $20 million agency. Mark Conway, chair of the council's Public Safety and Government Operations Committee, responded with a statement reading, quote, "This is concerning to see, and I am seeking additional information. We should always expect public safety agencies and those that receive city funds to carry out important public safety initiatives to follow the law."
None of this surprises us. The people who oversee it, Monzi, has a lot more questions now to answer.
Well, concern from council members, but despite the latest developments, no one said today that it's time to shut the agency down, at least temporarily, until critical questions can be answered. Well, live now at City Hall, Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. Fox 45's investigation into the Safe Streets program began 2 years ago, October 2021. At that time, we found 5 years of Safe Streets data showed inconclusive results about the program's success, even as the mayor pledged more money to it. In March of 2022, we found Safe Streets is supposed to submit monthly reports and audits for the city, but those reports didn't exist. And 1 month later, in April, we found Safe Streets owed a community health center hundreds of thousands of dollars. Months later in June, the city administrator said it was because of an administrative delay and the Board of Estimates was working to get caught up. In September, Mayor Brandon Scott announced the patchwork of nonprofits managing the Safe Streets program would change, putting LifeBridge Health and Catholic Charities in charge of all 10 sites in 2022. That change was made without telling City Council. City Council President Nick Mosby called that unacceptable.
When did you first learn about the change in management and oversight that the mayor announced about the Safe Streets program?
When it was reported in the media. So my team or myself was provided any prior briefing on the restructuring of Safe Streets and this the new approach from the mayor.
Is that problematic to you?
Extremely problematic.
Well, Fox 45 News submitted a public records request to get more information about the nonprofit contracts to run Safe Streets. The city didn't hand them over until January after we threatened legal action. Then just this month, we filed another public records request to find out more about how Safe Streets spends tax dollars. We found the program spent more than $5,000 at major shoe stores in April, $4,000 at stores like GameStop, Bath & Body Works, and Walmart. Records show the agency spent $2,500 in COVID relief money to take workers to Los Angeles. Now many city leaders are calling for an audit of Monzi and Safe Streets.
I think an audit does need to be done.
Transparency is key. If you have people that are benefiting from tax dollars, then there should be some accountability there.
Well, through our investigation, Mackenzie Frost has visited each Safe Streets location multiple times, but she found few workers each time. At some sites, she couldn't find any employees at all. Fox 45 has also found some Safe Streets locations have changed, even though the city websites still list them in their original locations. And we tried to get answers from former Monzi Director Shantae Jackson about the program, but more often than not, she walked away from our questions.
Director Jackson, can I ask you a couple of questions?
I think the mayor said meet us at the next.
Are you going? You have to realize that we have a job and we have the right to ask questions and get information out.
Director Jackson, can we talk about the multi-year Safe Streets contracts?
We don't have any comment today.
I know that you announced your resignation. You're planning to leave. Can you say where you plan to go?
Let me stop right here.
Okay.
Never, ever will I prioritize any news about me over top of news about our young people.
That's why I didn't
so
ask
we
during
can
the
save
press
that
conference.
question for a time when I'm ready to share it. Thank you.
Well, now we're also looking into the gang at the center of today's raid, the BGF or Black Guerrilla family. Fox 45's Alexa Ashwell continues our team coverage.
The Black Guerrilla family, or BGF, has existed for more than 60 years, and here in Maryland for more than 30 years. The gang, over the decades, involved in drugs, guns, and violence. The Black Guerrilla family back in the headlines after a source confirmed the notorious gang is possibly linked to the FBI's raid of a Safe Streets location here in Baltimore.
It wouldn't surprise me to hear that a gang that has infiltrated the prisons, that has infiltrated and controlled so many neighborhoods, is now infiltrating an organization like Safe Streets.
During his time with the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office, former federal prosecutor Dhruv Vignarajah was involved in prosecuting cases involving members of BGF.
There were both individual prosecutions of killers, as well as large-scale prosecutions of multiple members. One of the biggest prosecutions in Baltimore history was of a set involved in the Greenmount area where, dozens of members were indicted.
The birth of BGF dates back to the 1960s when the gang was founded inside a California prison. BGF appeared in the Maryland correctional system decades later in the 1990s, and while still a prison gang, expanded its criminal activity beyond prison walls and throughout Maryland. BGF making headlines over the years for drugs, guns, and violence.
BGF has had a stronghold over so many neighborhoods. They took over the prisons, they took over the streets. One neighborhood after another has had these BGF sets, these groups that would dominate the drug sales and violent crime of those neighborhoods. And, city and state prosecutors, federal prosecutors for years have been fighting back.
In 2013, the Baltimore City State's attorney indicted nearly 50 BGF members and associates for their alleged role in trafficking drugs, using weapons, and committing acts of violence in a Baltimore neighborhood. That same year, 13 correctional officers were among 25 BGF members indicted in the takedown of an operation that was occurring inside prison walls. Officials then detailing BGF members bribed correctional officers to smuggle drugs, cell phones, and other contraband in and out of the Baltimore City Detention Center, and even had long-term sexual relationships with several correctional officers and impregnated them. Fast forward to now, a decade later, BGF still making headlines.
You got to be relentless. And if you take your foot off the pedal, these gangs, which are so well organized, and were here before we started, and I fear will be here, even after we continue our work, they're going to come back.
Now, this isn't the first time BGF specifically has been linked to Safe Streets. You may recall back in 2018, a former worker admitted to storing guns and drugs. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Well, FBI raids are nothing new for Baltimore City. Many of them have ended in criminal charges. In 2019, the FBI, along with the IRS, raided multiple locations associated with former Mayor Catherine Pugh, including her home. She was sentenced to prison on fraud charges related to her Healthy Holly book scandal. In 2021, Fox 45 obtained videos of FBI agents arriving at City Hall, where they served City Council President Nick Mosby. His wife, former City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby, would eventually be indicted on 4 federal charges as a result of that investigation. Her trial starts on Tuesday. And last year, the FBI raided city school headquarters, part of an investigation involving payroll irregularities. Last month, federal agents arrested Dunbar football coach Lawrence Smith for alleged overtime fraud.
This is what we know right now. The FBI raided the Bel Air Edison Safe Streets location this morning, along with the homes of Safe Streets employees. Now, the FBI won't say what the investigation is about, but sources say federal agents are looking at possible connections with the Black Guerrilla family gang. There are questions about how the Safe Streets program works, including how employees are hired and tracked and how it spends taxpayer dollars. That raises red flags for some experts who say the program needs to be more transparent.
Public information, such as what we're talking about, is public under Maryland law. And when you redact these things, it is arguably a violation of the law on its face in the state of Maryland. So they need to have radical transparency, forensic audits. We need to be able to follow the money, and quite frankly, the elites, those large organizations like LifeBridge, which runs that center that was raided today, or Catholic Charities that run other centers on the Safe Streets program. Those elite organizations, why are they taking taxpayer money? Look, Catholic Charities got $143 million of gross revenue in the latest year available. The CEO of LifeBridge Health made $2.3 million, and 5 executives made over $750,000 the latest year available. Why do they need taxpayer help? They should lighten the load on the local taxpayer. They should pitch in on their noble charitable mission.
You can weigh in on our question of the day. Should Safe Streets be immediately shut down? So far, 97% of those who voted say yes. You can vote at foxbaltimore.com/vote.
Well, Fox 45 News has been investigating the Safe Streets program for years, demanding answers about how the program spends taxpayer dollars and how it keeps track of the former criminals it employs.
We'll continue our relentless demand for answers. Our commitment to you is to follow your tax dollars and hold elected leaders accountable for the Safe Streets program and any other issues facing Baltimore.
You can find all of our previous reporting and follow us, our investigation on our website, foxbaltimore.com. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 10, a Maine community tries to heal after 18 people were killed in a mass shooting. An update on the search for a suspect ahead in a live report. A custody exchange turns violent, leaving a mother hospitalized and a father on the run. Why police say the mother wasn't completely truthful about what happened.
Another day with potential record high temperatures coming for our Friday. I'm going to let you know how long the warmth lasts and when we could get a wet down and if it's in time for weekend plans. And my Weather Authority forecast.
And the Baltimore Board of School Commissioners is touting a plan to change the way teachers are paid, but the union isn't buying its supposed benefits. The scathing response after the break. Tonight, the urgent manhunt continues in Lewiston, Maine, as Robert Card is the prime suspect in mass shootings that left 18 people dead and more than a dozen injured. Card is believed to be armed and dangerous.
Federal agents left his house after spending hours staking it out. They allegedly went into the house to arrest Card a short time ago, but he wasn't there. A shelter-in-place order remains in effect for 2 counties. With at least 18 deaths, this is America's deadliest mass shooting of 2023.
Residents in Lewiston left stunned by what's transpired over the past 24 hours.
Out of nowhere, he just came in and there was a loud pop. He was holding a weapon. I just booked it down the lane and I slid basically into where the pins are and climbed up in the machine and was on top of the machine.
When you get anything that happens like this, you go empty. And there's just nothing you can do.
Again, police are searching for the suspect, 40-year-old Robert Card. We're also learning he is a member of the U.S. Army Reserve. Coming up at 10:30, we'll have a live report from our Sinclair sister station in Maine as this investigation continues to unfold.
A custody exchange ends with a mother in the hospital and a father on the run. I'm Alexa Ashwell with Maryland's Most Wanted, coming up.
A plan to change teacher pay structure has met with pushback in Baltimore. Why Teachers Union says that plan isn't in their best interests.
The Baltimore Teachers Union coming out strong against city school leaders' credibility over plans to change the pay scale for teachers.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Papster explains, the school system says its proposed plan would allow city school teachers to earn more money faster, but the union isn't buying that.
This is a scathing response from the Baltimore Teachers Union, which follows a FOX45 report on a proposed plan to change how teachers are paid. In this statement, issued one day after our report, the Baltimore Teachers Union criticizes city schools for prematurely discussing a plan that hasn't been agreed upon, calling it a public relations ploy. Right now, city schools teachers receive pay increases through achievement units, which are similar to credits that teachers can earn for evaluations or taking professional development courses. Earning these credits can take months or even years. The proposed plan would change that. According to the Baltimore Banner, city schools would reward teachers for helping other teachers. For example, mentoring less experienced teachers or helping write a curriculum. This plan would allow teachers to earn additional money that could be paid out immediately. But the Baltimore Teachers Union isn't confident city schools can deliver, saying in its statement, unfortunately, city schools leaders lack credibility when it comes to real-time payments. Our earned salary raises regularly arrive months late. Payment for after-school work is typically delayed without explanation, and we frequently need to fight for the district to honor its commitments. While North Avenue would not provide details of the plan, the district told us earlier this week it seeks to create a revitalized teacher career ladder that treats teachers as professionals. But the teachers union responded strongly to that, saying, "We'll know city school leaders are serious about respecting city schools teachers and treating us as professionals when they agree to common sense commitments that are the norm in other school systems and workplaces." The union says it continues to negotiate with Baltimore City schools. Project Baltimore will be following the progress. I'm Chris Papst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Baltimore's flagship violence prevention program is under federal investigation. Today, the FBI raided the Bel Air Edison Safe Streets location. Sources tell us it's on suspicion of possible gang activity.
Well, the FBI also raided the homes of 2 employees of LifeBridge Health, one of the nonprofits that oversees the program. Mayor Brandon Scott says anybody connected to wrongdoing will be held accountable. But Fox 45 News has been demanding accountability within the Safe Streets program for years. Our questions about the program's funding, how its employees are vetted, and the training they go through have gone largely unanswered. Longtime Baltimore resident Pastor P.M. Smith joined us on Fox 45 News this afternoon, saying a lack of transparency is a major red flag for Baltimore residents.
I want Mr. Barron to follow through on this. I want him to hold everybody accountable. I want him to make sure the mayor is not using Munzie or Safe Streets or Catholic Charities as a front for criminal engagement.
Well, as this federal investigation continues, Fox 45 News will continue to press your elected leaders for answers surrounding the Safe Streets program. You can find our complete coverage right now at foxbaltimore.com.
There was a somber procession this morning for Baltimore City Fire Lieutenant Dylan Ronaldo, one of 2 firefighters who died in last week's row house fire in northwest Baltimore. Ronaldo died this week after 5 days in the hospital. Today, his body was taken from the medical examiner's office in Baltimore to Deuterock Funeral Home in Essex. EMT firefighter Rodney Pitts was the other firefighter killed in that blaze. His funeral will be tomorrow at the Cathedral of Mary Our Queen in Baltimore on Charles Street. The service starts at 10 a.m. Fox 45 News will bring you complete coverage tomorrow on air and on foxbaltimore.com.
Baltimore police say a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old have been arrested in connection with an armed carjacking earlier this week. Police say they found a car matching the description of a recent carjacking on Longwood Street, following the suspects to West Lexington Street, where they were arrested. The 16-year-old had been arrested just 2 months ago on charges of auto theft. Well, several Baltimore residents have come to Fox 45 News sharing their concerns about juvenile car thefts. One woman tells us her car was stolen twice already this year, the second time caught on camera Sunday night. She says police told her they can't charge the suspects because of their age.
They had a case against them and things of that nature, and they just told me that because they juveniles, they couldn't really charge them. And that's my problem. Like, it's nothing but juveniles that's out here just hopping in these kids and Hyundais and just taking them as if it's their car.
Now, we've heard similar concerns from prosecutors across Maryland, saying they believe their hands are tied when it comes to holding young offenders accountable. Those states' attorneys represent 5.4 million people, about 87% of Maryland's population. Now, Frederick County State's Attorney Charles Smith is joining those calls. He's questioning the Juvenile Justice Reform Act, which limits charges for people ages 13 and under, and says juveniles under 10 can't be charged.
We do need to expand the list of crimes that we can charge younger children with. We have younger children committing serious offenses, first and second degree burglaries, distribution of heroin and fentanyl. And we just don't have jurisdiction really to get them into the criminal justice system right now.
House Speaker Adrian Jones and Senate President Bill Ferguson are two of the most powerful lawmakers in Annapolis. If you'd like to contact them about public safety legislation, their phone numbers and email addresses are on your screen.
Tonight, the Baltimore City Council held a meeting on Complete Streets, a program designed to create convenience on city streets for both cyclists and pedestrians by expanding bike lanes. But some residents say the details of the plan aren't specific enough to be effective.
Complete Streets is replete with hasty and flawed generalizations. There is no data that is stratified community by community to show how the blacks, the women, the people over 60, under 60, and by economic indicator are being affected by this.
There were several meetings, thousands of signatures from citizens of this great city, and continuing to humor the loudest often can silence those that are most passionate.
Well, those opposed to the program are demanding a complete moratorium, while supporters argue it's a necessary method to keep cyclists and pedestrians safe on city roadways.
Pedro Argote, the man accused of killing Maryland Judge Andrew Wilkinson, has been found dead in Washington County in western Maryland. Argote's body was found a mile from where police found his car over the weekend. Police say he shot Wilkinson late Thursday night outside his Hagerstown home and had been on the run since that time. A custody exchange ends in gunfire. Here's Alexa Ashwell with Maryland's Most Wanted.
Investigators say Daryl Davis has multiple warrants for his arrest, including the attempted murder of the mother of his child. The U.S. Marshal Service now joining the search. June 22nd, 2023, Baltimore City. A woman walks into a hospital with a gunshot wound and tells staff she heard gunfire while waiting outside of her car to pick up her child, then realized she had been hit by one of the bullets.
Baltimore Police Department was alerted and went to the scene.
That scene here, the New Shiloh Village Apartments in West Baltimore's Mondawmin community. Officers checked area surveillance and watched a much different story unfold.
Facts gathered subsequent to the investigation revealed that the woman was involved in a domestic dispute.
The footage, investigators say, shows a man walking out of the apartment complex with a child. He approaches a car in the parking lot, opens the passenger side door, and according to court documents, begins to assault the driver by throwing the bags into the vehicle. In the video, the man then pulls out a gun,
pulled a firearm and shot her.
The woman drives off. Investigators, realizing the victim had lied about what really happened, begin to try and piece together the identity of the man in the video. Another resident is able to identify him as 37-year-old Daryl Davis.
He was already wanted before he got involved in the shooting.
A check into Davis's background revealing he already had a warrant out for his arrest and was well known to law enforcement with previous arrests for drug possession,